I'm Judy Ayers, and I'm married to Coleman Ayers. We were married almost 46 years before he went home to be with the Lord. In 1999, after some 25, 30 years praying for his salvation, I went to Venezuela on a mission trip, and Coleman was home alone, and one night going to bed, he was one of those kind that went to bed with the chickens, and he woke up hearing, he thought was a storm. And so he laid there and listened for a while, and then he thought he'd check outside, so he went outside. He looked out the window to the outside, and the trees weren't blowing. There were clear sky, stars in the sky, and he thought, what in the world is that? So he laid back down, and he thought maybe it was trucks going by the house, but it wasn't trucks. So he began to hear this noise move, and it started moving like it was coming from the living room, and it was coming down the hallway, and it scared him, so he rolled over with his back to the door. And so he could hear it coming into the bedroom, and he saw the curtains were going back and forth. He only had a sheet on the bed, and the sheet was kind of going up and down, and it came into the bedroom, and he said, oh, something's here to kill me or something. So he started reaching for his pistol on the nightstand, and something in his spirit said, it's not going to do you any good. So he thought, well, I'm just going to hit it then with my hand. So as the noise, loud roaring noise like a train, and he'd never heard this before, and he was really scared. So he was laying on his left side, so he came back with his right hand to hit whatever's there, and as he turned over to hit, it was gone, just like that. So he thought, I wonder what this was. He said, this is not a typical thing. So he thought it might have been the devil or the demons. So he got up and started looking through the Bible, and he could not find anything in there, not reading the Bible that much. He couldn't find anything there that was helping him. So he got up and he checked through the house. He looked under the beds, behind the doors, in the closets. He looked everywhere, and he couldn't find nothing. He said the pictures on the hallway, had a lot of pictures of the kids, and the pictures in the hallway was still straight on the wall. And he said anything coming down the hall that powerful, if it was wind, it would have messed him up. There was some papers on the TV that I had put there, and I said, do not remove these. I need these immediately when I get back. And they were still in the same position. And so this was just mind-boggling for him, and trying to figure out what in the world was this. So when morning came, he called my son, which is a Nazarene pastor, and he started telling Brian about this. And so Brian says, well, what do you think it was, Dad? And he says, well, I'm thinking it was a demon or the devil or something. And Brian says, well, he says, I'm going to tell you something. He says, Mom and Barbara and I have been praying for you all these years. And he said, did this thing come to harm you? And he said, no. Did it come to kill you? No. Did it steal anything from you? He said, no. He says, then I would think about that. He said, I've been praying for you that God would reveal himself to you in a way that only you would understand. And he says, what are you talking about? And he says, well, what's been on your mind for the last several years? And he says, don't play games, Brian. This is serious. And I don't like what's happening. And Brian says, well, think about your invention. He had an invention that used a vortex. And so he says, think about that vortex. What is it that you think you heard that could have been like a vortex? He says, are you talking about a tornado in the house? And Brian said, well, was it like a tornado? And he said, well, it kind of sounded like maybe something like that, but it didn't hurt anything, didn't destroy anything. And so anyway, they talked some more, and Brian said, and he finally he finally said to Brian, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. So when nighttime came, he would not sleep in the house. He slept in our fifth wheel so he could keep an eye on everything. 3 nights he slept in the fifth wheel until I came home. So when I came home, he said, I need to talk to you about something. And he told me the whole story. And he says, what do you think it was? And I said, it's not what I think what it was. What do you think it was? And he says, I don't know now after talking to Brian. I have no clue. I thought it was a demon, but he's telling me it didn't hurt me or destroy me. So I'm not sure. And as he was talking and explaining some of the story to me, I asked him, I said, did you ask God into your heart? He said, I did, but I don't think I did it the right way. And I explained to him, there is no wrong way to ask God into your heart. You just call on his name and he's in your heart. But we said the sinner's prayer again. One of the things that came out of this is that he did receive the Lord into his heart. But God had brought humility back into his life. He had no compassion for people, animals. He was very hard on people and animals. And so he got a lot of humility, and through this he cried. I saw him cry for the first time in our life. And he cried a lot. And he said, why am I crying a lot? And I said, because God is working on your heart. And I said, and you're crying this stuff out. And so he became a man of God. He became a man of the Word. He knew the Word. But, you know, I still kind of thought, oh, maybe he's exaggerating in a story. So we were praying in church one night, kneeling on our seats, and we had a window air conditioner. And that air conditioner came on. It wasn't a perfect air conditioner. And it started making a noise. And he grabbed my arm and he said, what's that? And I said, I believe it's air conditioner. And he goes, oh. And I said, why? He says, that's kind of like the noise I heard that night. And I said, you know, you were very fortunate. He says, why? And I says, myself and many, 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 many other people, when they receive Christ in their heart, they have a tug at their heart. They have that invitation, feeling to come down and accept. I said, you had a Moses experience. He says, what do you mean by that? And I said, God visited Moses in a burning bush. And I said, I feel that God visited you in this house, either in a storm or tornado, or whatever you want to call it, because it would take something strong to get you to wake up. And he said, you're right. And I said, so be thankful it was the tornado, if you want to call it that. Because my prayer was, at one time, he made a donkey talk in the Old Testament. And when you were working out with our 2 cows, Sandy and Hamburger, I said, I prayed that God would speak to you through Sandy. And if you came in and said, you won't believe what just happened, Sandy talked to me. Okay, so anyway, if he came in and said that Sandy just spoke to him, I would not be surprised, because that was one way I thought God could reach him. And there were other prayers that I had. I wanted to, I asked God that I just wanted to hear him say at one time, we're going to be late for church. And our first Sunday going to church, he looked at his watch and said, what time does church start? And I told him, he said, you better hurry up, we're going to be late. And I started laughing, and he said, what's so funny? And I said, that was an answer to my prayer. I said, God even wants to touch us with the tiniest little thing that we ask him. And I said, he knew how important that was to me, and he made it happen. I said, so that's how God's going to work in your life. And he read the Bible a lot, understood it. He would witness to people on the street. He would tell the clerk, God bless you. And she would say, thank you. And he would say, now you know what you need to do? And she goes, what? He says, you need to go and ask God to bless someone else. Keep it going. He said, don't ever stop it. And so he was even asked to be the associate pastor, even though he wasn't gone to school for that. But it would not to be to preach or marry or anything like that, but it was to assist the pastor. And the pastor said because of his heart, because of where his heart was with God. And he was a prayer warrior, prayed for people. People would come to him after church. They could have been prayed for during church when we had our altar prayer time, but they would come to him after church and want him to pray with them. Even a man brought a sick granddaughter in the snow to our house and asked him to pray for her. And then the next day or two was okay. So anyway, it took 25, 30 years praying for him. God did say one night here when I lived in California, leave him alone, he's mine. I knew he was under God's care. I didn't push him, I didn't beg him. And after we moved to Utah, God spoke to my heart one day, and the exact words I heard, we're going to sock it to him. And I said, was that you, God? Speaking to my heart. And it was after that, things began to happen. Satan didn't like it, and he would use things to upset me and get me angry at him. And I would come to him about it, and he said, I didn't say that. And I said, yes, you did, and you hurt my feelings. And so then I realized that Satan was twisting words in his mouth and was using it to come between us, because that's what he likes to do, is come between a husband and a wife. And I said he was trying to break up our home, but when I realized it, I do things literally. I walked in the garage and I stomped my foot and I said, Satan, get out of my life. Get away from us. You will not interfere with us and with what God is doing in his life. And then things got a little easier, but I'm just so thankful that I served God with him for 9 years before he passed away, and knowing that he is now where he wants to be at the foot of Christ and praising and worshiping with him. And it's just it's been wonderful. So, Pastor Bob, you got any questions?
I believe you also told me a little bit about how he passed away, that was something special too. Am I remembering correctly?
Well, he told me about 6 months before he got sick that he prayed to go home. And I said, well, why didn't you check with me that? Because, I'm a little selfish. I want to keep you for a while. And he said, I'm just so homesick for Jesus. I kind of tear up when I say that. I'm just so homesick for Jesus. And he said, I just want to be with him. I can't help it. I just want to be with him. And then 6 months later, he did say for years, he said, I don't want anyone to take care of me. If I ever got sick, I don't want to have you and the kids to have to take care of me. I just want to go fast. So 6 months later, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. And 5 days after that, he died of an embolism. He went fast. I had about an hour to get him to the hospital and everything, and he died. He died on the way to the hospital. And he's with God, and that's where he wants to be. And going through his Bible and some of his notes has been wonderful, because he's left things. He's left things for not realizing, but the kids and I love to look at it and go through it and say, look, I'd share with them, look what your dad did. So he had a wonderful service. It was a praise and worship time. Being in church, we had different denominational people there, and some of them didn't know what was going on, but we had a celebration. We had a real celebration. That's where he wanted to be, and he was well loved, and so I miss him, but I'm praising God that I know I'm going to be with him. And Barbara and Brian does too. Sometimes when Barbara's singing, she goes, when I sing, I'm singing with my dad in heaven. I couldn't do that on earth like I wanted to, but I'm doing it now. We're singing together, and so. Anything else?
No, it's beautiful.
So I'm just thankful that God is faithful, and he does care about us, and he cares about the lost more than anything. He wants them with him. And my husband did say, one time I had a pastor was talking to him, And he said, one day I will be saved, but I cannot do it until I can give my all. And so he did it when he could give us all, and he did. He gave us all. So